Hey, and welcome to this edition of Breaking Out of Depression. This is going to be a very special and a wonderful edition as we have an amazing guest in studio with us, as well as we have our co host back. Gabriella Woods is back live and alive and kicking with us. Welcome again, Gabriella. How are you doing?
I am fine. I'm so glad to be here because I have been missing. I want to ask so many questions because Sarah M was one person for sure I wanted to connect with, and even our guest last week, Ernest. Yeah, but don't
Yeah.
worry. Hopefully, from now going forward, everything should be great.
All right, all right. So let's just begin with a wonderful prayer, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce our guest. How does that sound?
Yeah, no problem. No
All
problem
right,
at all.
good, good. Let's pray. Let's pray. Almighty God and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful time and occasion. We pray that you would continue to inspire us to bring the necessary information, knowledge, people, and content to your people, that they would receive that inspiration and the opportunity to transform their lives with a better quality and a better value as your will desires for them. Meet our guest and his family, the friends, and loved ones, as well as our producer, Gabrielle, and all those who will be logging on and who will see this in the future as we put it out on the different social media platforms. Continue to lead and inspire us, and may this always bring honor and glory to your name through your Son Jesus Christ, we pray, with thanksgiving. Amen. Gabriella?
Right, awesome. So today we have a special guest with us, Sir Evans. He is the Superpower planner, an author, strategics, and transformational speaker dedicated to helping overlook achievers unlock their purpose and turn their story into strategy. With a voice forged in resilience and faith, Sir Evans is the go-to guide for misfits, legacy builders, and underdogs who are ready to rise. He is the creator of the Superpower Planner system, which bridges soul and structure, empowering people to turn their lived experience into meaningful action. His upcoming book, What is Your Superpower?, releasing in 2026, challenges the way we think about potential not just by naming it, but by activating it. Whether he's working with schools, nonprofits, corporate teams, or correctional programs, Sir brings grit, grace, and unapologetic realness to every mic he steps behind. Get ready for a conversation that blends heart, humor, and strategy and helps you to tap into the power you may not even realize you already have. Sir Evans is no stranger to loss. In 2006, he lost his mother. In 2009, he lost his sister. In 2018, he lost his father. And in 2022, he lost his brother. Instead of allowing those experiences to take him to a place of depression and hopelessness, he used them to inspire, empower, and motivate himself, which later turned into a voice that does the same for others. So, without further ado, let us just welcome our special guest tonight, Sir Evans.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Gabriella.
Yes, you're
Thank you, Andy.
welcome. So
You're
much
Blessings
to
to
have
you.
you
welcome.
here. Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so pleasant good evening to the panel, Brother Andy Charles and Gabriella Woods, and of course our guest, Sir Evans. That's some
Yes,
great
it's
secrets,
nice.
our number one audience supporter. We love you, we bless you, continue to be with us, my dear sister. Sir Evans, I'm going to start by asking you a personal question. And what does it mean to be able to have a life with purpose and planning and power? For you personally, what does that mean for you?
I think what it means to me to have a life of purpose and value. Every day I wake up knowing what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, every day I wake up feeling driven.
Mhm.
And I think that that drive is so important because that drive helps me to be aware of where my spirit is, where my mind is, where my physical health is, because that purpose can't get achieved without all of those things functioning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing. But you were not always there at that point. There was a time in your life
yeah,
when everything seemed to be going south,
absolutely.
and you had to find a way to get it back on some level of balancing so that you can get a better
Yeah,
quality of life. Tell us about that transitional period. What was the emotional state of life for you?
Yeah, so I feel like there were multiple
Yeah.
times, right? There were multiple kind of slow pivots where the Lord kind of redirected me. But I think the catalyst moment was it was actually before my
Mhm.
mother passed away. It
Okay.
was before she passed away. I was at my heaviest weight. It was 525 pounds. Um, and it was even trouble just being able to breathe, walk, and talk, have conversations, just a regular. And I remember going on I was driving with a buddy of mine. We were going to Canada, and I was drunk in that passenger seat. I couldn't hardly breathe, and I just thought to myself, there has to be something better than this. There has to be something um, worth living for. Because
Yeah.
also at that time, I didn't really think that I would live to see past the age of 25. So I probably was about 24 or 23 at that time.
Yeah.
And I really didn't think that I would live to see another day or another year. And I think that in that moment, I really kind of just broke down to God and I said, okay, you keep giving me days. You
Hmm.
keep waking me up. Show me what you're waking me up for.
Yeah.
Show me what it is that you keep waking me up for that I'm not seeing. And I think that was the breaking moment for me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. How did you begin in your mind to refocus from 525 pounds
Right.
to get that strength, that impetus, that energy, that ambition to say, you know what? Besides God being a difference in my life, I am personally going to dig deep, find that strength, and do what I need to do because there is something that I need to live for. And you are living it right now.
Yeah.
But in addition to what you felt in that transitional period, how tough was that emotionally for you?
It was very emotional, Andy, because the scariest part is you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what that change looks like. You don't know what it feels like. You don't know how to walk into something new.
Yeah.
But I knew that the results that I had been getting weren't what I wanted to see.
Hmm.
So for me, it was such a simple concept, but it was so life changing. I just had to take it one day at a time.
Right.
I had to take it one day at a time because the problem with change and that type of radical transformation, especially for me, but this applies to a lot of cases. It's the idea that we have to live like this for the rest of our life,
Hmm.
right? I have to um, eat like a rabbit. At first, I said, okay, well, we have to slow down what we're eating. we have
Yeah.
to. I thought about it very simple. If we cut down on what we're intaking and we exert more energy, we can probably see some different results. But
Right.
just the idea of saying, okay, I have to work like this every single day, that was a challenge. So I had to really convince myself to say, okay, no, we don't have to do this every single day. We just need to do this today,
Right.
just today. Today is
Yeah.
the only day that matters, you
Yeah.
know. And that was a transformation that really I needed because even now, approaching new endeavors and things like that, there's still this level of uncertainty, but being able to go into that unknown one day at a time.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing and for being so open and vulnerable. Can you describe to us what is the Superpower Planner and how it can help people just to get organized?
Sure. So that superpower planner, it's a tool that we developed. So throughout my journey, I realized that a lot of people don't like to plan. So
Yeah.
when I started my company in 2016, I started it after the weight loss journey, after losing those loved ones, and realizing that the same energy, if you will, that same power that I was using to overcome these obstacles, it was the same thing being applied. But I noticed that oftentimes we get overwhelmed in the
Yeah.
process, right? We get overwhelmed with, is it something that I mentally need to overcome? Is it something I spiritually need to overcome? Physically, financially, passion. So what the superpower planner does is it breaks down your goals into separate sections because we believe that with every new level that you arrive, there's also new layers that you're going to have to peel back,
Hmm.
right? So it focuses on how can we break down those goals into bite-sized pieces annually, monthly, and daily,
Yeah.
right? I actually have one here. And as I was working with clients, I realized that people didn't love to plan. So I said, how can we make planning as valuable as the phone that people love to stay attached to? Right.
Right.
I'm sure none of us would leave home without our phone, but oftentimes people leave home without a plan of action for the day.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about the Superpower Planner, this is one of here. It actually has wireless charging, so you can actually charge your phone. This little emblem here,
Yeah.
it's wireless charging. You can charge your phone on there, and each of them has a tech companion, so some type of tech feature in the back. This one here has the the charging ports. You can actually charge your phone. Some of them have built-in lights in there too. Like this one here is called the Light Book. So
Wow.
let's say you're on a flight or you're traveling or doing reading after hours, you can actually use that right out of your superpower planner. The goal is to really help people develop those habits of planning while still writing things down. That's the key ingredient. We still need to write things down.
Yeah.
The phone isn't making us any smarter. Technology isn't helping us. So how can we actually write things down? There's so much research that supports writing things down and achieving those goals. How can we stay there?
Yeah. Love it. That's so true. Gabriella, I know you're itching. Hey, Wesley.
Yes, I have so many questions. Just to share a little bit about the series of losses that you would have experienced. The Pardon?
Yes,
Yes.
blessings to all. Thank you so much, Wesley.
Hi, Wesley. Good night.
Go ahead, Gabriella.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, it's dealing with the series of griefs that you had to go through during those spaces of years, it definitely would have been a very trying time for you. If persons are listening in the audience who may be experiencing, some form of grief and, don't know how to even overcome it, how to even go through the process, because I mean, there's no timeline for grief, but what would have been your go-to, or what was your steps that you took, or what encouragement would you give to someone who, may have been experiencing so many lows and still have to get up in the morning feeling driven?
So, of course, that's a very sensitive area, and it's so sensitive for so many people. And
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that is overlooked is that time piece that you said.
Mhm.
There's no timestamp on grief, and oftentimes people feel like they have to hurry through
Yeah.
to appease other people. Take your time.
Yeah.
It's your time for a reason. Like we have 24 hours in a day. Each of us has separate 24 hours. We did separate things with our 24 hours. I would tell the listener, take your time.
Yeah.
It is your process. It is your grieving. It is your healing. And oftentimes, after someone passes or a funeral, people don't typically check in. The
Yeah.
check-ins typically fall away, and those are usually the hardest times that people need someone is after that. So I would
Mhm.
also recommend take your time, but also reach out to someone.
Yes.
Reach
Yeah.
out to someone. As much as we want someone to reach out to us to check in, no one can fully understand what you're going through when you're grieving. And that was one of the biggest things. Another thing that I'll share is people will often relate or, and let's say you're spiraling, because I was spiraling at that
Yeah.
time. I
Yeah.
was spiraling. And people would say, well, sir, I can understand how you're spiraling after losing what you've lost. I can understand. But what nobody ever told me is that you don't have to stay there.
Wow.
You don't have to stay in that place. I look at it as the example of a hotel or an apartment stay versus your home.
Yes.
Grief is a lot like a lease or that apartment that you're staying in. It's not somewhere that you live in for the rest of your life, but if no one ever tells you that, you could spend your whole life in that same grieving place. Um, but it's just a time. Take your time,
Yeah.
and you do not have to stay there.
Wow. I love
Wow.
that. I love that concept. I love that analogy you give, that it's not, it's not a place that you have to stay. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, yes, it's a timeline and there's no timeline, but yes, you have to take your time. And a lot of persons rush sometimes and they just get even more deeper into their grief. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that very encouraging nugget for
Yeah.
persons. Can you share an example where aligning your plans with God's purpose shifted the outcome?
Yeah, aligning the goals with purpose. I would say really when I started my business. When I started the business, we focused on helping clients who are overcoming traumatic events, also weight loss.
Hmm. Yeah.
But also, I realized that people weren't really in that space, right? It was very challenging to have those one-on-one conversations. Maybe even people might not have saw the value in their healing, so they didn't see the value in why they should be putting a price tag on that
Yeah.
service. So one of the things that I had to realize is that I still want to make this impact. I still want to be able to help people. I still want to be able to create that guiding light. So I made a pivot and slight change into public speaking. That's what actually got me into keynote speaking. Was I wanted to still be able to reach the people, reach a larger audience, and then out of that audience, if someone wants to go deeper into the program or into the consulting, that's how we would reach them.
Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest pivots, and it was so beneficial. And also the planner, the Superpower planner, actually came as a result of that
Hmm.
because as we were working with clients, the pandemic happened, COVID-19, right? So now we're not going to speak, we're not going on the road, we're shut down, we're quarantined. And it really gave me the opportunity to focus on the development of the planner because people still need plans, they still have goals, they still have things that need to be executed. So that was actually a time where it's like, okay, if we're not able to speak directly in the way that we were before, let's still create the tools that they need based upon what you're speaking about.
Wow.
Wow.
Awesome. Awesome.
And
Awesome.
how can someone recognize, when their business is actually robbing them from their purpose?
That is a good question. One thing that I would always say is who is the business serving, right?
Mm.
I don't think that a business should be created or is designed to simply serve yourself, right?
Yeah.
The business is to serve the community, is to serve even the people who are employed underneath you. Those people, they're employed because they have bills that they're trying to take care of. They have a family that they're trying to provide for.
Yeah.
So if the business is only self-serving, then it's not serving the purpose that it was truly intended to. And I think that's even with someone who may be developing a business, someone who's thinking about starting that business, who is that business serving? And ultimately, I've always told where is the problem in the industry that you're solving, but even more importantly, who are you serving? It can't just be about you. I'm a firm believer that we have seasons in life where we should be getting ourselves together, but I don't think God ever intended our entire existence to be focused on getting ourselves together. If that's
Together.
the case,
No.
something's not being done
Yeah.
correctly. It's not That's not the
Yeah.
design,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Awesome.
Love it. It's
I'll
love.
also I'll also say this too in relation to the grief when you mention that.
Hmm.
So I think about my driving experience, right? When I was a kid, my dad he always had this Ford pickup truck. It didn't run, but it sat in the driveway for years. And I would get in that car and I would just imagine I was driving somewhere. Now I couldn't reach the pedals. I wasn't old enough to drive, but I thought I was going somewhere. Fast forward, now we're driving. It's second nature, right? What didn't change was the size of that car.
Mm.
Right.
The car stayed the same size. Nothing
Yeah.
changed about the car. I changed. My perspective changed. The size, my growth, my mindset changed. I learned how to drive. I learned how to be a good driver. Grief is the same way.
Wow.
When people say that it gets easier, it doesn't get easier. I think about my mom every day, right? I think about my sister every day. What happens is we grow
Yeah.
through the grief so we're able to manage it more effectively. That
Yeah.
grief is the same size as it was when it happened. What happens is we grow through it. So that's where that time takes place because take your time to grow the way that you need to grow. There are stages of grief, and I do believe those, but take your time because the grief doesn't necessarily change. We grow through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Great
powerful.
stuff. So, folks, we are on Breaking Out of Depression, Purpose, Plans, and the Planner. How to Design a Life That Moves with God by Sir Evans. Uh, Gabriella, it's your turn. It's your turn.
Yeah, mommy's always here. Thank you so much for supporting. And she says, "Good night, everyone. If everybody wake up daily, thank God for life, is enough to be driven, so positive, very encouraging in spite of so many daily challenges that we all face in different ways. God is good all the time and nothing just happens. There's a reason for everything that happens but God will never leave nor forsake us. He loves us unconditionally." So true.
You know, Gabriella, I think it's about time that we begin to give people some sort of commendation for the excellent and very inspiring comments. And
Yes, yes.
she,
Wisdom, wisdom.
so she's out of the world. All right, so folks, we're gonna have a video now. I see Dexter's lined it up, and after that video, we're gonna have our guests do some commentary on the video.
I was so heavy at a young age that the weight had bowed out my legs to the point where I had to have a reconstruction. I had the first one in 1999, and the second one I had in 2013. But in both times, I had to learn how to walk all over again. So I started in a wheelchair. Once I had enough strength, they graduated me to the walker. Got a little more strength, able to get some crutches. One crutch to a cane, but it was a process. One of the things that the doctor had told me, sir, you have to be careful when you're getting up. You have to be careful of what you're leaning on because you're going to develop a limp. Even once you heal, you're going to develop a limp because you got used to leaning on something when you felt weak. You have to be strong enough that once we're in here and we're training, that you're walking upright and you're walking in a specific way so that you're not leaning on these things when you feel weak. And your muscles are going to develop that same way. Your muscles are not going to develop in the way that they're supposed to if you're always leaning on something. We all have an internal weakness. We all have something that fuels that imposter within. Something that we feel inadequate about on the inside. But we also have an external crutch. Now the person to your left, the person to the right doesn't need to know your crutch, but you do. Person to the left, person to the right doesn't need to know your weakness, but you do.
Wow, profound, profound. Tell us about that, please.
Yes, that was a powerful analogy. So I'll say this: God always surprises me with real life examples. He always shows himself there, and that was so. Backstory: I at my heaviest, like I say, 525 pounds, but it started early,
Yeah.
right? So the weight bowed out my legs. I had to have a corrective surgery to straighten it. I don't know if you've ever seen Forrest Gump, but the same things they put on Forrest Gump's legs at the beginning of the movie, that's similar to what I had, right?
Okay.
Um, and through that journey, as I had to learn how to walk twice because I had two different surgeries, had to learn how to walk, I always had a sort of a wobble to the walk because of the bow leg. So it
Yeah.
was natural just from life. So when I went to the therapy, I would lean to get up, but then there'd be a little bit of limp, right? Because I'm still sore.
Right.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
still sore.
Yeah.
He says, "Sir, I need you to be mindful of how you're walking, right? Because this is going to, you're going to heal this way, and you're still going to have that limp." And the analogy in there is when we go through grief, when we go through trauma, when we go through heavy situations that are imprinted on us, they have a lasting impact. And if we don't heal correctly from that, then
Mm,
we'll always have a problem, right?
yeah.
So when we think about a weakness can be fear, it can be anxiety, it can be depression, it can be anger. Anger is a very prevalent one, especially with men, because it gets confused as other things because they don't communicate what exactly it is, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but then we have those external crutches that we turn to as a result of those weaknesses. People turn to alcohol, drugs, lust, procrastination. There's so many different things that are outside factors that fuel those things. And I look at the analogy of, well, not even the analogy, but the scripture of the principalities, right? What we're actually battling against. Sometimes you can't see what you're battling against, but that doesn't mean that the enemy won't drop something physically into your lap to help you, right? And I think one of the important things also in that analogy is there's nothing wrong with a healthy crutch.
Yeah.
The point of going through those different examples is because I needed a wheelchair when I
Yes.
couldn't walk. I needed a walker. I needed those crutches. But if I was walking down the street now with a walker with no reason, I would be defeating the purpose of what the tool was made for,
Yes.
right? And a lot of
Absolutely.
times we abuse the things that we lean on. We abuse our support circles. We abuse things because we don't fully understand what this is here for, and it has outlasted its time. And being mindful of what you're leaning on. I have leaned on a lot of things in my life. I've leaned on alcohol, I've leaned on drugs, and nothing has sustained the foundation the way that the Lord has.
Wonderful.
Um, and a lot of audiences that I go into, I can't directly speak to them first about the strongest thing that helps, right? But one thing that I know for sure is that God gave everyone a superpower. He gave everyone a unique strength, and oftentimes I'll get people that ask me afterwards, well, tell me more about this superpower. Well, now I have to tell you about the strength behind that superpower, that
Yeah.
true crutch, that true thing that has never broken the ground beneath me. But we just have to be mindful. That's why I said your neighbor to your left or your neighbor doesn't right to your right, they don't need to know. It's helpful because you can have someone who can help you hold you accountable. But at the end of the day, we individually need to know what are those internal weaknesses that we struggle with and what are the external factors that we turn to when the going gets tough.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. I felt like we just went back to school a little bit there. So, Gabriella, your turn.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Just listening to that little powerful, it's a testimony.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that a lot of persons may think, well, it sounds a little easier said than done, and a lot of persons during those heavy moments, they look for the external factors, and it may be something that is not going to help them to rise out or, to overcome or go through their situation and come out resilient. How would you advise persons who may think, well, maybe external thing like drinking or going to Lyme is covering that pain or that place that they feel stuck, but yet there's an emptiness inside that is not going. What was that? What helped you to fill that void? You mentioned God being in the present, but what would be your advice to those who are trying so hard to deal with those heavy moments, but yet whatever external factors they lean on, which may not be on the positive side, is actually weighing them down even more?
Yeah, it's definitely easier said than done.
Yeah,
Yes, I still struggle, right? As
yeah,
we all do. I would say one of the most beneficial things that helped me to see was quiet time.
Mm.
yeah,
It's oftentimes in my history, it was forced quiet time. That's why I would highly recommend people to stop and take your quiet time because life
yeah,
will force you if you don't.
Yeah.
Um, but that quiet time really made me see where I was doing damage to myself. It
yeah,
made me see where, okay, I enjoy these pastimes, but they're keeping me on this hamster wheel, and I feel like I have somewhere to go,
Mm.
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Oftentimes, people will stay on that hamster wheel because they don't know that they have somewhere to go or they don't desire somewhere to go. That's where the biggest wheel is, and that's probably not the audience that we're speaking to, right? People who are used to the same problem, they don't even want to hear anything about solutions.
yeah,
But that quiet time is so important because oftentimes those crutches will drown out the silence. That's one of the reasons we use them because we don't want to be alone with our thoughts. We don't want to be alone with those emotions. But being alone with those thoughts will help you to identify where the problems are. And for me, the quiet time was, I didn't even realize that I was spending quiet time with God. I didn't realize that it was meditation at first. I just knew that there was nobody that I felt like I could talk to.
yeah,
Um, and I didn't have anywhere to go. So I was kind of forced into a quiet space where I had to address some of those heavy issues that I had, you know.
yeah.
But that quiet time, it's so important. It's so important.
All right. Thank you for sharing that and being so vulnerable with us. When it comes to the planner, now just going back to the planner a little bit.
Sure.
Usually planners, with the planner, what makes your planner different from the usual persons who would write down their goals, their plans, and then it might just stay in the book and not become a reality. What makes
Yeah.
the superpower planner different? That persons could say, you know what, I'm not just gonna write my thoughts and my plan, but I'm actually going to execute it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always tell customers is the planner isn't so much used for what your day-to-day tasks are. The planner should be used for what your day-to-day habits are.
Right.
What are those day-to-day habits that are going to help you? And I think the biggest thing that separates the superpower planner from every other planner is the superpower framework. So we believe that everyone has a superpower. As I mentioned, there's 10 primary superpowers that we focus on. So what the
Yeah.
superpower planner does is it helps you to identify what are your top three superpowers, and throughout the planner, there's prompts and messages based upon your superpower that will help you navigate that planning. For example, one of the superpowers that I have and one that's in there is vision, visionary grit. Being someone who has vision and is visionary, it's never really a problem for me to come up with a good idea, right? I don't have a shortage of good ideas and I write them down. The problem is sometimes you have to slow down and focus on a few of these versus all of these at once. So the
Yeah.
superpower planner has those different prompts that helps them to navigate. And as I said, it helps them to break down these goals into smaller sections. I had a client that wanted to leave corporate America. But as we started to do some of the fact finding, we realized that that wasn't really the goal that they wanted. They weren't happy with their job because they really weren't happy with their health at the time. And more specifically, they weren't happy with their weight. Okay. So we focused on, okay, how can we help improve that physical layer? Mind you, there's different layers. There's spiritual, mental, physical, emotional, financial, and passion. So the superpower planner helps you to focus on one layer at a time. If you're new to this, we don't recommend people to try on multiple. Just what layer do you want to improve in? Which layer do you want to set a goal for first? What's that annual goal? How do we break that down monthly, weekly, daily? And the daily is simply what are the habits that are going to be needed for you to achieve this at the end of the
Okay.
day?
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
A lot of times
Not
that
not to mention, I'm sorry, there's
go
no other
ahead.
planner with the tech features.
Yeah.
We're the only one.
There you go.
Yeah, because the tech is important in this day and age. It's very important for real.
True, true.
How has creativity played a role in your healing journey and writing even your book that will be released in 2026?
What was the beginning part of that, Gabriella?
How has creativity played a role in your healing journey as well as when it comes to writing that book that will be released in 2026?
I think creativity is probably the reason why the book exists.
Mhm.
My first passion was music. That
Yes.
was what I would have thought was my superpower years ago. If you'd have asked me what was my superpower, I probably would have said that.
Hmm.
But as a child, I always had a love for arts, music, drawing, and comic books. So all of that cultivated together, I always examine. I'm a firm believer that art imitates life. So I always love to examine how some of these comic book characters actually share some real life examples, right? It may be the ability to shoot lasers out of your eyes, but once again, maybe someone just has a vision that's so sharp that they can always execute. It's always fun to see how these comics, where it's not realistic, but creatively we can still apply that to real life.
Yeah.
So I think creativity played a huge part in the book. I've worked with clients for over 10 years, spoken with thousands, but that creativity to be able to help someone see a different perspective that they didn't see before. And I think
Hmm.
that's important to helping people overcome adversity because everyone knows to a degree what needs to be done. But oftentimes there's that light bulb that hasn't went off, that perspective that's needed to kind of help them see things. And that's where that creativity was so beneficial in this process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. I can ask one more, Andy, or you're going to ask a question?
Uh,
I
let,
got a question for each of you too. I have a question.
okay,
Okay.
on to that. But let's just read what Gracie Vincent is saying in her comment. She says, "God is a merciful God, and He always takes care of His children." Wow, love that,
Always.
Gracie. Thank you. So, what's your question? Oh, she says, being angry does make everything more hard.
Hmm.
Just have self control, but bro, God is blessing you always.
Absolutely.
Yes, wonderful,
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Yeah.
What's your question, sir?
What's your superpower? Or what do you think your superpower is?
My ability to embrace people no matter what the circumstances.
Beautiful. Beautiful. How about you, Gabrielle?
Me? I think I know that. Okay. I think my superpower is actually being able to listen and hear the things that are unspoken when people talk, and use it to actually bring out what they know that is inside, but hasn't received that boldness to actually bring it out there.
Mm,
So
that's good.
that'll be one of them.
Mm.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
makes her such a great counselor as well.
I can
Yeah.
see that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, we've been going at 90 miles per hour, so we're just going to take a
So
break and do the thought of the week.
yes.
So let's just relax a moment as we get the thought of the week going. Yeah, right. So I saw it pop up there a moment. The thought of the week, Vex. All right, there we go. Thought of the week. It says, in all of life's accomplishments, tending to our souls is a priceless investment with the greatest return. Let me repeat that. In all of life's accomplishments, tending to our souls is a priceless investment with the greatest return. I'm just going to leave that for people to consider and contemplate and see if it's in any way possible can inspire them to be even more focused and objective about life. So, back to you, Gabriella. Your mic is muted. Yeah, there we go.
You all are hearing me now.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. All right. So could you tell us how can persons personally discern when their goals are driven by ego versus when it is aligned with God's vision for their life?
I think it goes back to that who are you serving? But even more importantly, what is it glorifying? If we're bringing the Lord into the equation and we're factoring that against what is this glorifying, and that's one of the biggest difference between a superpower and a spiritual gift. God
Yeah.
gave everybody a superpower. That does not mean that everybody uses that power for good, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was asked, what's the difference between a superpower and a virtue? Well, a virtue we consider like the fruits of the spirit. We they're inherently good.
Yeah.
A superpower is not inherently good. Just because you have a superpower, you could be a villain, right? But it becomes a spiritual gift once it's glorifying the Lord. Once it comes back to who are you serving this for? Because ultimately, God has given us all of that power for His glory and to bring that mission to truth. So I think that's the biggest piece to look at, and it requires some humility, and it
Mm-hmm.
requires what I would recommend surrendering before you even ask yourself that question, surrendering and submitting for the day, because a lot of times we get in our own way, and of course we may be powerful as humans, but the same thing as your quote, that soul is the priceless because we can't do anything without it. There's nothing that can be done once that spirit leaves the body. So why not feed that first, and why not feed the one who gave it to us ultimately? So I think that's the biggest determining factor. And who are you glorifying? Add in the slice of humility, because oftentimes we will say, "Well, I'm working for God." Well, you can't outwork God, and you can't work harder. So if we find ourselves in that rut where we're burning the candle on both ends, was like you can't outwork the grand worksman. So it's kind of how you said we're going 90 miles per hour. You got to take your
Yeah.
foot off of the pedal sometimes and recognize, okay, who are we truly doing this for, and what are we doing?
Okay, awesome.
Um,
Um,
I just want to, if you don't mind, I just want to piggyback
yeah.
on that a little bit. I'm looking at burnout and misalignment, and I've seen a lot of high performers struggle with that almost on a daily basis. I sometimes speak with people personally as a coach with regards to that. And I myself sometimes am challenged by that. I realize, hey, you have to stop, you have to get that balance, you have to get that time out. You have to make sure that your cup is really filled and most of the time it's flowing over. How can we help people to reach to a point where they actually plan the opportunities that are available to get the balance so that the burnout or the misalignment don't disrupt the flow of their lives?
I think we have to help them understand the value of each of those layers,
Okay.
and each person will find one of those layers more important than another.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I'm a firm believer that the most important one is that spirit, because I
Yeah.
can't generate money, I can't think, I can't do anything without that spirit. But being able to help them understand the value of each of those layers, because they all help one another. But if you don't understand the value, your self value, let alone the value of these layers, then it's always going to be this: I have to work, 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 work. Everything else falls by the wayside.
Mm.
Or I have to take care of my health, 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 health. Work falls by the wayside. There's always going to be an overcompensation in one or two areas because you don't see the value in the others. But
Mhm.
there's value in each of them.
Okay.
And I do believe that, I don't believe that you need to understand the value in all at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that if you understand the value of one, it'll give you that momentum to build in another area.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, Gabriella.
All right. So how can someone invite God into the process of their plans without quote unquote over spiritualizing it? Because people may tend to go a little too much
Sure.
on the biblical side, and they may like, oh God say thou shalt not,
Yeah.
and they hold back themselves from actually being, achieving their goals. How could you, advise person to invite God but not over spiritualize it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing is, when we think about faith, right? We typically think about faith as truly spiritual thing.
Yeah.
However, when we talk about that inviting, and we're not trying to over spiritualize, that faith piece is still based upon you going into an area that you've never navigated.
Mhm.
So sometimes you got to get yourself out of the weeds and just say, okay, I'm going to have faith in this process that I've never taken, that is going to get me to a place that I've never been. And that requires faith in itself, even if it's in the process. I'm going to have faith in this because what I've been doing hasn't been getting me the results that I want. What I have been doing hasn't really been making me feel the best, or hasn't been making me feel whole. Okay, so I'm just going to have faith in this process itself that I've never seen, that is going to get me there. And I think that's an important piece, because oftentimes, if you don't have that relationship, and it's new to you, a lot of this sounds like fairy tale. Sounds like make believe. It sounds like, unless you have experienced it on your own, it's hard to believe. So I would say, even at the bare minimum, focus on the faith of the process. Focus on the faith of the process, because it's still going to be new to you, it's still going to be scary. But if you don't take that step out, then you're never going to have that confidence or that faith to be able to continue to trust more.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. And what will be your advice or your encouragement or the steps to take for persons who may be struggling with fear or even procrastination when it comes to achieving their goals?
Procrastination is a little easier. You just got to go.
Yeah.
There is
Until
there
I'll be
is
there.
there is no other answer. It's like you just gotta go. You gotta
Yes.
put your foot in that water. You gotta do it. You gotta try it. And actually, as I think about it, fear and procrastination, they usually hang out together as
Yeah.
buddies, right? And the
Yes.
fear will be in the procrastination's ear. Well, no, don't do it because of this or because of that.
Yeah.
And procrastination alone, cut it and just say, hey, we're just going to do it, right? It's kind of the same formula with fear, but I think what's important with fear is to slow down a little bit and to really sit in it, right? It kind of goes back to that quiet time, but what are you actually afraid of? What if that outcome does come true? What happens next?
Yeah.
Um, what is the result of that? And really play it out. Really play it out. I use the example with my wife. She's afraid of snakes, and I can't go too in depth with this because,
Yeah.
but it's like okay, I'll say worst case scenario, you get bit. Now you're afraid of snakes, so we didn't say a poisonous snake. Okay, so we'll take care of it. You're not going to die. It's probably not going to be any swelling. But what does the worst case scenario look like?
Yeah.
And I think that's very helpful with overcoming the fear because I think a lot of times we realize that it doesn't exist. It's not really
Yeah.
there. Um, and one thing that I've also come to is understanding what controls fear, who controls fear, and even if I don't want to over spiritualize it for that audience, fear is not in the direction that you want to go. Fear is something that's limiting you in the current place. So I
Yeah.
guess the question too that one would have to ask is, what's so good about that place, or what is it about that place that you're in that makes you want to stay there so badly?
Yeah. Hmm.
What is it? Because more than likely, it may be something that hasn't been addressed. It may be something that has a crutch that's just sitting quietly to the side. You don't
Yes.
bother me. I'm not going to bother you. I'm just going to sit here quietly in the dark. But we have to shine a light on that and really see what is that, and what is that fear, and what is the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, so Bernadine is wow. This one is super, super dynamic. Go ahead, Gabriella.
We all through tests, go through tests, I guess, so
Yeah.
that we can be a testimony to others who may be going through the same stuff. That is why I love this program. Every week we need each other. No man is an island.
Yeah. So
Through the power of community.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very, very, very important.
yes.
What advice would you give to someone who's listening right now and is really struggling with, moving forward in life? They feel like they're too far gone. They feel like, I have put the plans out there. I have trusted God. and still feeling like as though they are just stuck. What would be your advice to those persons now?
It's okay to be stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
It's okay to be there sometimes. God woke you up. If you're listening to this, whether you're listening now or you're listening later, God woke you up and He has you here for a purpose, right? Even if you don't see it. And one of the things about being stuck that we always try to rush through is I think the misconception of our seasons and our time,
Mhm.
right? So it's always our time. If we're
Hmm.
here, it's our time. It's a reason why we are in this season of life, this era of existence in 2025 versus 1600. This is our time. What it may not be is your season,
Mm.
right? We reap, we sow. We have to be able to identify what season we are. Maybe this is a season where you're waiting for something to grow and where it may feel like you're stuck, but you're not actually stuck. Things are just growing. And
Yeah.
it's being able to analyze, okay, this is my time. I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to not let that hinder me because there's a sense of joy, happiness, and a purpose that comes with it being your time because there will be a time when it's not. But the thing that gets challenging is like, okay, what do I do in this season? Every season has a purpose, and it's like, okay, I'm not stuck. It's about a reconditioning of the mind and how you're looking at it. But this is my season. What am I here for? What am I here to do in this season? Because it's here.
Yeah.
I didn't, it's here, and this is my time. So how do I maximize it? And I think that's the most important part. It's always your time. It may not be the season that you ideally want to be in, but there's always something to be gained from the season that you're in. And I believe I do not. I'm not a karma advocate, but I do believe that if we do not catch a message, then we'll see it again later in a different form.
Yeah, that's
So
true. That's true.
Yeah.
God is bring it in different ways. When you're not picking
absolutely,
it up, yeah, He will bring it in different ways. And you're like, why is this reoccurring? Yeah, it's a sign.
absolutely,
It's a
right.
big sign.
Yep.
Um, do you have any success stories, or what are some success stories, or what would have been one of the biggest success story for you over the years dealing with persons and showing them the
Yeah.
superpower plan and stuff like that? What would have been some of your
Oh
achievements?
boy. Um, there's a few. I think some of the ones that really stand out to me are the ones that I didn't know about until afterwards.
Yeah.
I had there's a buddy of mine. He was a college athlete, and we used to always have consulting before knew I was consulting, and we'd have conversations, kind of helping him with motivation on off the field. And there was one line that I told him: "You never know how close you are until you quit. So keep going. We're closer and closer to your dream." And that young man, he went on, he played for the NFL. And he told me after he ended up winning the Super Bowl, and he told me, "Your words in the locker room is what I kept replaying
Mm.
during that game. You never know how close you are until you quit." And that was what helped him to get through that. That always stuck with him because you don't know. You're just dropping seeds. You're doing the work, and that was one of the motivating factors that helped. That made me start the business. And another one is even more recently is actually one of the reasons behind the book.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking about superpowers for 10, 11 years. I didn't invent the superpower, of course, but for years I've been talking about it. And a close friend of mine, he said, after years and years of knowing about it, he said, "Sir, I don't understand this superpower." I said, "Well, how don't you understand it? Like, you're close to me. We're friends. Like, you should know this stuff."
Yeah.
But him saying that made me realize, okay, if he doesn't recognize this, then how many other people don't recognize
Mm,
it, right?
yeah.
So I took that as a personal challenge where I really sat down in my mind and said, I'm going to write this book to you, specifically to you. You are my target audience because if you can get this, then other people can get it.
Yeah.
He actually read the manuscript, he applied it, and actually he just wrapped up his grad program and his goal and where he wanted to be a superintendent. He ultimately wants to represent and be a black male in education. We don't see too many of them, especially in public schools. And he said, if they can see a young black man in leadership in public schools showing their superpower and teaching the students how to use theirs, then that speaks volumes. And I'm so proud of that young man and how that was helpful to him. Um, and it was something that helped both of us, helped him with his superpower, and he helped me to be able to help others.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that,
Wonderful.
Andy.
Yeah, we are coming down to the end of this.
Unfortunately,
Oh, so bad.
But you know, the saying, all good things must
must
come.
come to an end.
I
Yeah.
don't like saying that, but all good things must come to a place where we take a break and maybe we do it some
Regroup.
other time again, right?
Absolutely.
I
I'd
love
love
it.
to. Yeah.
You know, Sir Evans, you've been really, really engaging. I'm sure you have inspired a lot of people, and those who are going to hear this later on and see this will be even more inspired because I think every time you look at something that has enriched
Hmm.
your life, you realize how valuable it is. If you had a mega mic and you could speak to the entire planet, 7.8 billion or so people, and you have one message that you want to say to them that you know can make a difference, what would you say to them?
You have a superpower, and
Yeah.
that superpower will be the thing that you use to reach the maximum, the best version of yourself. And that best version of yourself is not just in your work, it's in your work, it's in your family, it's in the way that you treat yourself, it's in the way that you treat others. So let me help you identify that superpower and how do you apply that to a purpose driven plan. But you use it every single day. This isn't something you're going to get off of the shelf, it's not something you get at the store. You've been using that superpower every day of your life. And one way that you can figure out where it is and where it resides is to examine your family, your culture, your education, and your experiences for where you have seen your strength shine through consistently.
Yeah, wonderful. That's huge. That's huge. I want to take a look at people who have maybe won championships, achieved fantastic goals, and I see that there are some in this world that can go on and win 23, win 24. I'm speaking about Serena Williams, of course, and Novak Djokovic, just for references. But there are some people, sir, that they win something and then they can't repeat that.
Mm.
What I feel is important there is to realize that every time you begin the process, you have to start from zero all over again. How do we get folks to understand that that is the mindset that is necessary to win and win
Yeah,
and keep on winning?
that is so good. Um, it goes back to one day at a time.
Yeah.
But here's where we add in the layers of one day at a time.
Mm.
Every day is not going to be a slam dunk. Every day is not going to be a knockout of the park. Some days the day is going to kick your behind.
Mm-hmm.
Some days the day is going to get the best of you. And
Yeah.
what you have to do is once that new day starts, I said, okay, day you got over on me today, but tomorrow we're going to reset and we're
Yes.
going to start from zero. We're going to reset and I'm going to do my best tomorrow. That's the critical thing, especially with getting back to zero. Yesterday's victory is not today's victory.
That's right.
I went to the gym last week with a certain motivation that I got from that weekend. I tried to use it this morning, and I was reminded you can't use last week's motivation for today's journey. So, one day
Yeah.
at a time,
Yes.
reset. It doesn't matter if you reach the highs or you reach the lows, reset. All good things must transition, but reset one day at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What does the future look like for Sir Evans? I know the book is going to be coming out in 2026. We're looking forward to that. We want to have you back here,
Yes.
including that within that launch of that book. But
Absolutely.
I'm sure there are other things that are happening in the horizon for you. You are a man of vision, passion.
Yes.
What does the future look like for you and the organization?
Sure. So our goal is to save 1 million lives through the power of planning, whether it's through the tools, whether it's through our services. One of the good things about the planners is you don't have to buy a new planner every year. You simply refill the inserts that are on there. So we're getting ready for the 2026 launch. They launch in the beginning of October, where people will be able to get those. And every year we do come out with different styles, colors, and models. So those will be coming out the top not the top of the year, but October, November as well. So we're preparing for that. Really just expanding the products with the Superpower Planner to really help people to plan and write things down and continuing to use that voice to impact people. We do have a book tour for the book coming, Lord willing, 2026 and 2027. And those are the key focus that we have right now. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Godspeed to you, my friend, and your people in all your endeavors.
Thank
We
you.
just have about 30 seconds to go, but I just want to let you know that in about a week's time, we're going to have uh, edited MP3, MP4 versions of this episode for you. And I'm going to do my due diligence on the Podmatch platform for you.
That's
You've
beautiful.
been an amazing guest. And I'll give the
Absolutely.
last word to Gabriella before we let you go.
Oh, well, before I give my last word, I'm seeing a question here that we kind of missed. I don't know if it's from Vex, but he asks, at what age does someone's superpower come alive? So you can
That's a
answer
Yeah,
that
that
from
is
great
my
from
side.
question. So I want you to make sure you get this book. But some superpowers we are born with, right? For example, one of the superpowers is disruptive curiosity. Another one is creativity. Some of these things we are born with versus resilience. Resilient. I have a 1 year old daughter. She was not born resilience, right? We develop resilience through experience.
mm,
Magnetic communication is another one. Some people are born good speakers. However, there's still some development that must occur over time. So some of the superpowers you're born with, some of them you develop over time. Um, but I will say, by the time you're 18, you have encountered those superpowers that you have. Oftentimes we overlook them, but you have encountered them by the time you're at least 18.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I was gonna ask, well, how you would know, but we'll leave it for another time. Because persons might be like, yeah, I reached 18, yeah, no, I like this, or I'm passionate about this, or but how
So
do I know for sure? Like,
here's what I'll
this is the
do.
direction I need to go.
Here's what
Sorry,
I'll do.
Andy.
Yes. Yes.
Here's
Yes.
what I'll do. Because the planners actually have a test in them. So when you
Yes.
get it, you take the test. But we're actually working on an online test. We'll make sure that we get that link to you so that
Right.
your viewers can have that link. It's a
Mm-hmm.
short test. It's only 10 questions. Some of the questions are challenging, so you may have to think about them. But
Mm-hmm.
after you take that, you'll be able to identify what your superpowers are.
Awesome. All
Yes.
right. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It was indeed a pleasure having you today.
Likewise.
Our discussions was really encouraging, really impactful, really powerful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so vulnerable, and thank you for being yourself, and actually just letting us know how simple it can be if we just we have that mindset shift and we really take it one day, one step at a time. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Sir Evans.
Yes. And thank you so much for having me. Absolutely loved it. And I love the audience's comments too.
Yeah.
Um, you little do you know this helped refill my cup. I've been pouring it out all day, and it's helped really refill it at the end of the day. So I really thank you so much for that.
Wonderful. Glad
Aw.
to know. Take care. We'll be in touch.
All righty.
Okay.
Bye bye.